Good day, everyone, and welcome to a short series called When I Learned About Linux. Today will be a brief overview of man pages and how to use them. Man is short for manual pager, and they are used to give help to the user for the numerous commands that are utilized throughout the Linux system, specifically used in the shell prompt. Both veterans of Linux and new users, such as myself, can benefit from using the man utility. New users who aren't too sure about the numerous options that go along with the commands will find this utility very. When I first started learning about Linux and the commands that are used at the shell prompt, it was really daunting to try to remember the numerous options that go along with the commands. I think without having the man page utility to use, I'd still be lost or trying to jot down a lot of the options and how they work with the commands within the system. Earlier I mentioned that veteran users of Linux could benefit from using the man page utility. Now you might be asking, how could someone that's been using the system for a while benefit from using the man page? For veterans, there will be times when they cannot remember an option that goes with a certain command. Again, there are so many options that can go with one command, it's just too much to remember, and they probably didn't write it down. So in this case, they would use the man page utility to jog the memory, because instead of having to write it down, it's right there in front of you on the Linux shell system. Honestly, of everything I've learned about Linux so far, the man page utility is probably the most beneficial and most used command that I will use for as long as I'm using Linux. To use the man utility, all you need to do is type man at the command prompt, followed by the command you want to view. In this case, we're going to start by using man to man the man page. So here we can see the man page for the man command. Man pages are always set up the same way, so it's easier to read through. You have the name of the command, a synopsis, and a description. As you can see, there's options given with the synopsis, just a brief overview of how to use the command with the options. Further down, you'll see a section dedicated to options that will show all of the options that go along with the man command. And that's what I was mentioning earlier about the number of options that go along with the command. It's just typically too much for one person to remember. So it's just easier to look up the command and use it from that aspect. Next, we're going to look at the man page for the clear command. Again, it's the same setup as the man page for the man command. You have the name, synopsis, description, options, and the history. For the clear utility, you will use that a fair amount just to make sure your screen is clear after running a command that has a lot of output. The last man page we'll look at is the ls command, which is the list directory contents. Ls is another command that you will use constantly and also has a lot of options to use with it. Going into a directory, you'll use the ls command to look inside the directory for files or programs or just whatever's in that directory. Another good thing about the man page under the options section is that all the options are listed in alphabetical order, so it's easier to find. And I forgot to mention that at the bottom of every man page, there's a contact page for the page itself, so that if there's any errors or anything, you know who to contact. For this next part, we're going to talk about the numerous text editors available for Linux. You have VI text editor, you have gedit text editor, you have line text editor, you have Geany text editor, and you have Pico text editor, just to name a few. Each distribution has their own text editor that comes pre-installed, but you can download whichever editor you want regardless of the distribution you use. Each editor has their own unique take on editing, such as menu changes, different options, and how to access those options, but they all function the same. Since I'm using the Fedora distribution, it came with the VI text editor and the Nano text editor. Initially, I was really, really confused as to how to use the text editor, since I was more familiar with Windows and word processors. I believe the most important thing I had to remember was the difference between insert mode and which other mode I needed to be in order to actually make changes to the text, specifically in the VI text editor, which I've grown accustomed to now. I've edited a number of texts so far, but it's gotten easier, but there are still times I forget the differences and when to switch through the different modes. To begin using the VI editor, you type in VI plus the name of the text you want to call the document. If it's already a text file with that name, it will automatically open that text document. As you can see, I typed in VI text test and it brought up this file. This was just a simple file, something I wanted to use as a demo. Currently, we are in command line mode, which just lets you view the text without allowing any changes. To begin making changes to the document, you have to press the insert button on your keyboard, which will bring up insert mode, as you can see at the bottom of the screen. In insert mode, you can make changes to the document. You can add, delete, and move about within the text. As you can see, you can move around the document using the arrows on your keyboard. You can use the space bar. You can use the home and end keys to move around the sentence or the document as you need to make changes. Once you press the insert button again, you go into what's called replace mode. Replace mode overwrites the text that's starting at the front of the cursor. I would say honestly be careful with replace, because it took me a while to get used to the cursor and how it operated in Linux versus Windows, but it got easier as I continued to use the VI text editor. Once you've made all your changes and you're ready to save your work, you press insert again to go back to command line mode. Once back in command line mode, use the full colon to use the options to save and exit the program. W is used to write the changes that you've made within the text. Q is used to quit. If you use Q after you've made changes, but you don't save, it will give you this error. You can press escape to clear the error and go back to save the changes. So to exit, you can type W and Q, and it will write and quit the change. You write and quit to the file. If you don't care about the changes that you made and you still want to quit, you can go ahead and type in Q followed by a question mark and it would just quit without asking. It basically ignore that prompt. Once again, this was just a brief overview of 2 things that I learned from Linux so far: man pages and text editors. Thank you very much and have a good day.